Hey, good evening. I'd like to call the City Council meeting of Wednesday, August 9th to order. And first on the agenda is approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Okay. Next, we will have public comment. And if there's anyone that would like to make public comment, I would like to remind you that it needs to be other than the subject of this evening's meeting. So is there anyone that would like to make public comment that's in the audience? Change the chair. Anybody that's online? Okay, thank you. So we'll go right into our action item. Tonight is the continuation of the Stanley A. Roberts and from LUBA of an approval of a type 1 development permit in conjunction with the building permit 164-22-00006 WL for the development of a new residence and accompanied road development. This is an action item hearing regarding a remand from LUBA of an approval of a type 1 development permit in conjunction with a building permit for the development of a new residence and accompanied road development in the S curve area of Hemlock, also known as the Roberts application. The council heard a public meeting on this matter at its meeting on July 10th, 2023, and left the record open for a 777 period as set out in state law. The record is now closed in this matter, and this meeting is the time set for the city council to deliberate towards a decision. Before turning to these deliberations, however, there are a couple of procedural items that the council must address prior to beginning its deliberations. The first issue involves a challenge to the participation of one of the city councilors, in particular, Councillor Kerr. Our process for dealing with such a situation is set out in our code, section 17.88.0004. The applicants have made their challenge and submitted the facts that they rely on for their challenge. Those facts include several emails that are in the record as item A75. I want to give Councillor Kerr an opportunity to respond to that challenge, and then the 4 remaining members of the council will vote on the challenge. Councillor Kerr?
And I apologize ahead of time for the length of this. I just wanted to include everything. So, dear Mayor and Council, I want to acknowledge that an allegation of bias was made against me, and I would like to respond to the allegation. In the July 24th, 2023 letter from the applicant's attorney, she asks that I be recused based on a series of emails. With all due respect, I disagree with these allegations and would like to explain why. First, I want to talk about my background, then my understanding of the law regarding recusal, and then the material that the applicant's attorney suggests requires me to recuse myself. As some of you know, earlier in my life, I spent 25 years as a public defender in King County Superior Court, Washington Appellate Court Division I, the Seattle Municipal Court, and even in one instance, the Supreme Court of Washington. I had to put my personal beliefs and prejudices aside daily and adhere to the law. I did so successfully, and as in very few cases, when I believed I could not provide an impartial and zealous representation of my client, I went before the court and stated that fact on the record. I believe I understand bias and know when I can and when I cannot put aside my personal beliefs to make a decision based solely on the law and the evidence. This decision, the one before us, is one I can make solely on the evidence in the record and our city code and nothing else. That is consistent with Oregon law on recusal. The most extensive recent discussion of recusal for land use cases comes from Columbia Riverkeepers versus Clatsop County, which involved an opponent of LNG development who became a county commissioner. The developer of an LNG site argued that he should have recused himself from any decision on their proposal because of his expressed opposition to LNG. The Court of Appeals disagreed, finding that there is a high bar for recusal and that in determining whether bias is present, The focus must be on the precise and narrow matter before the city council. With that background, I want to review what is in the emails submitted by the applicant's attorney. First, there is a series of emails between the attorney for the opponents of this application, Will Rasmussen, and Diana Turner at Friends of the Dunes. In those emails, Diana noted that I was on the planning commission when a previous application came before the commission, and states that I will, quote, fight hard to keep the right of way for the public, unquote. I consider Diana an acquaintance, but we have not spoken about the current application, and her comments are at best a guess on how I will act. Perhaps more importantly, all of Diana's comments related to different proceedings. Even though those other proceedings may be related to the matter before the council, as I understand the Columbia Riverkeeper case, they do not demonstrate any bias in the precise matter before the council this evening. In addition, the applicant's attorney included a second set of emails between me and Mr. Rasmussen. I will note that this exchange took place before I was elected to the city council. And again, those emails were related to a different matter than what is before the commission tonight. Moreover, in that email, I merely informed Mr. Rasmussen that I wrote a letter as a private citizen, but even though it is not biased to do so, I chose not to speak publicly as a citizen in front of the council, as it might appear biased, even though it is not. The issue in the letter was in general whether a city should ever create a private easement on a public right-of-way. That is not the issue before us tonight. In the Columbia Riverkeepers case, the Court of Appeals summarized the decision as follows. Quote, actual bias can be established where prejudgment has been alleged by explicit statements, pledges, or commitments that the elected local official has prejudiced prejudged the specific matter before the tribunal. It cannot be established circumstantially or internally except by necessary and indisputable implication. There were no statements, pledges, or commitments by me to prejudge this specific application, and there simply is no implication about this application. More importantly, I can assure you that I am committed to acting in an impartial manner on this application and all other applications that come before the council. I will make my decision on this matter based solely on the evidence and testimony in the record and the requirements of the city's code. And I see nothing in the material submitted by the applicant that affects my ability to proceed with hearing this matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kerr. Anyone have any questions of Councillor?
Promotion?
If there's no discussion, Chair.
Yep.
Thank you.
I move to deny the challenge and find that Councillor Kerr is not disqualified and does not have a disqualifying personal bias.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? Roll call, please, Tessa.
Council President McCarthy, voting to deny.
Yes.
Councillor Hayes,
Yes.
Councillor Ogilvy,
Yes.
Mayor Knopf.
Yes. Okay, thank you. The next procedural issue is to reopen the record. The next issue involves a request from a party to reopen the record. Because the request was not made according to the open record period, council has not seen the request. However, staff has recommended that we not reopen the record to avoid potentially violating the 120-day deadline. Is there a motion to reopen the record or to reject the request?
I move to reject the request to reopen the record.
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Councillor Kerr,
Saying yes, I'm agreeing with his motion.
to reject.
Yes.
Councillor Ogilvy,
Yes.
Council President McCarthy,
Yes.
Councillor Hayes,
Yes.
Mayor Knopf.
Yes. Okay, next we'll move into deliberations. The August 4th, 2023 staff memorandum does identify a few other procedural issues, but those can be resolved as part of our deliberations. So I would now open our deliberations and ask the council to begin its deliberations. Anyone like to start us off?
Well, I think one of the clearest thing, I mean, this is very complicated, I admit, but I think one of the clearest criteria that I found is it seems to me, from reading everything that I've read, that I'm going to jump right to that there is a structure in the oceanfront setback. And that being the retaining wall, and according to the definition, as I read it, that is a structure that is not permitted in the oceanfront setback. So that particular part of this application, I have strong concerns about and feel like that it is not met, that the standards aren't met.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else like to?
Agree with Lisa. I think that's the biggest hurdle for me on this.
And I would also like to agree with that.
And I will note that I believe I'm very concerned about the geologic hazard issue. However, I understand that our code at this point isn't clear and objective in the way we laid it out for the standards for that issue. So even though I'm very concerned about it and think that there's certainly nothing that makes me feel comfortable about it, that is not going to be one of the reasons that for me in making my deliberations, because until we rewrite our code to be more clear and objective on that particular issue, I don't think we can use that as a standard.
Okay.
Lisa and I have different views on a lot of things, but I'm in total agreement.
I guess I'm concerned about if we are really discussing the easement on the ROW, on the right of way, in terms of the at grade driveway, we haven't seen any plans for that. I don't think the staff has seen any plans. Is that right?
That's correct.
So I would really hesitate to, make a decision without knowing what those plans are.
And I'm also concerned about the safety issue.
Mhm.
Onto the egress as we come out. So the egress onto Hemlock. I walk Hemlock all the time, so I'm very familiar with people, the dangerous situation on that road around the S curves. I cannot see how this could possibly not create a greater danger for pedestrians and other cars. And I haven't seen anything that I understand that would show me that is not true.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest issue with the plans for the at-grade driveway in particular, that
Yeah,
there's no way to make that decision.
right. And I think that's at this point, the way I see it, unless I can see some evidence to the contrary, it's an accident waiting to happen. So I feel uncomfortable with it until there's something that is really concrete. I mean, for me to look at that I can make an informed decision.
Well, I think it's not only the egress onto Hemlock, it's the visibility by drivers going both north and south. I don't care how many signs and flashing lights you have, it's still going to be a problem, I think, to see that. Because you're pretty well blind, especially if you're heading north. You're blind when you make that curve and you see, and that could be too late. And then the other direction as well, because you're coming up the hill and you're kind of leveling out, and then suddenly you're at that intersection. So I think there's a lot of safety issues there. The other problem I have too is how is the city, all the engineers' reports said the city is going to have to be very careful to examine the drainage, the dewatering system, every month to make sure that it's not damaged. And I just wonder how that's going to happen in the future. I mean, are they really going to be able, is the city really going to be able to do that? And how much is it going to cost us to do that every time too?
I share those concerns as well. And again, the clear and objective standard on it, I wish it were clearer, but it's definitely a concern for me too.
And the S-curves pose other safety issues besides cars and pedestrian. We have elk that frequent the area. There's no way you're going to see the herd come down, when you're there. I mean, I think a lot of times when I go around the S-curves, I think I see more issues when the elk obviously are there. And people aren't used to them, so they're stopping to look at the elk. And then you've got pedestrians trying to get to Haystack Rock. And I mean, there's a lot of things that are totally out of our control that cause safety concerns.
Well, I think also it would be quite an attractive nuisance for pedestrians. That driveway would be so alluring for a pedestrian to go across the street in that particular area and then try to head down the road. And when they head down the road, where are they going to actually go? They're going to end up, because even if it's that great, it sounds like to me it's at least 5 feet up elevated. How are they going to get to the beach or the inspiration point? They're going to end up in the Roberts driveway or in the Roberts lot. I mean, I don't see any way unless there, I suppose if there's stairs down at the point, the turnaround point, but it's just to me a very attractive nuisance. If you get a car and it's supposedly only 12 feet wide, to have a pedestrian and a car and say another car is trying to, it's like you say, it's an accident waiting to happen, I think.
Do I recall the applicant making, I think, verbal comments that there was no structure within the oceanfront yard on their lot, and it was all about the Nanana right of way. But Steve, it looks to me like either driveway that is proposed violates that ocean yard setback. Am I incorrect on that?
No, when you take a look at the exhibit, the last plan that they had submitted, I believe it was July 17th, exhibit 5, you can see the driveway and then the hammerhead, and there's certain portions of it that does lie within the right of way that is in that ocean yard setback.
And then there's also that I think it's a turnaround area, and that is actually west of the
That's correct.
setback.
That's correct.
And I think that was pointed out by one of the engineers that that turnaround area is not large enough to turn around easily anyway.
I would have to leave that up to the engineer from us.
I think that's the engineer that was hired by the city pointed that out.
So we would promotion. Someone to make sure. Brandon, do you have anything?
I don't have anything to add. I absolutely concur with the statements that have been made.
Okay.
I'm prepared to make a motion. if you're ready. I move to deny application DP number 2206 for development permit in conjunction with the building permit based on the issues in the August 4th, 2023 memorandum. Based on the application proposes development in the oceanfront setback, which is not permitted and violates the city's oceanfront setback requirement for retaining wall used to support parking spaces located within the oceanfront setback.
Second.
For you, I was,
Other
yeah,
discussion?
I'd like to actually I agree with your motion, but I'd like to add in some of the other issues as well that were identified in the report. The ones that, not the geological one, because I don't think we can on that one, but there were things
That's my
about,
understanding as well, Lisa.
yeah. So, but there
I'd
was,
be happy to hear what you have
Safety.
to say.
oh, just this, the safety issue, the clear vision issue.
Okay,
And I think that was the only other one, was everything that was outlined in the August 4th memorandum. The issue on the definition of structure, I agree with that in the memorandum. All the different things that were laid out, which precludes using the geological survey as part of our thought process because of the lack of clear and objective standards. But there's a lot of things laid out, and I think that all of them are really, really things that I agree with.
okay. I'm just at a little bit of a loss as to how to.
But here's how he did it. He did it like that.
I have it.
Oh,
Amend the motion. You can just add add amendments to the motion.
I would amend the motion, but based on issues identified in the August 4th, 2023 memorandum.
Such as,
I don't think we have to say all of them, but
So
The
page
defini-
9 of that memorandum has in that, subsection 3B identifies 6 specific conclusion that staff recommend. Maybe make your way.
okay, all right. That the appears there may that we would need an engineered plan for the actual access to verify whether there are clear vision areas. That the staff's interpretation of the oceanfront setback includes the right of way. The application proposes development in the oceanfront setback, which is not permitted and violates the city's oceanfront setback requirement, a retaining wall used to support parking spaces located within the oceanfront setback. Although state law prohibits the city from applying this conclusion to the application, that the applicants have not shown that the geologic hazards are eliminated or minimized to an acceptable level.
That's the only one I didn't want to include.
Right. And so that's why I said, but state law prohibits the city from applying that particular standard, but I believe that has not been met.
I'll amend my motion to include items 1, 2, 3, and 4 of the memorandum.
I think the seconder has to agree. And
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, I'm trying to get there.
no,
Page 9,
I've got them if you want.
3B.
And can you repeat the ones that you're adding to the motion?
You bet. I'll go ahead and read them just to make it more clear. A move to deny the application for development permit in conjunction with the building permit based on issues identified in the August 4th, 2023 memorandum. 1, the applicant meets the access criterion, but appears there may be sufficient clear vision areas will need engineered plans for the actual access selected to verify. It is the staff's interpretation that oceanfront setback includes the right of way. And then 4, the application proposes development in the oceanfront setback, which is not permitted and violates the city's oceanfront setback requirement. A retaining wall used to support parking spaces located within the oceanfront setback.
Thank you. I second.
Is there any further discussion?
What with that motion?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I guess the other piece of it is this would be a tentative decision directing staff to go back and bring the findings, and we bring back to you at your August 15th meeting for you to
That's
review.
correct. Thank you.
Okay. And well, we'll talk about the next issue after,
Okay.
if you've got a motion and a second. Yeah.
Is there any, did the staff need any response? Okay. Okay, I think we're ready for roll call. Please, Tessa?
Counselor Ogilvy,
Yes.
Council President McCarthy,
Yes,
Counselor Hayes,
Yes,
Counselor Kirk,
Yes,
Mayor Knopf.
Yes.
The only other thing I want to bring up, there is a state law, ORS 1975223, that says if if the city determines an application is inconsistent with its land use regulations, prior to making a final decision, the city shall allow the applicant to offer an amendment or propose conditions. However, I think I mentioned to that early on that may apply. We did a little more research. I think the definition, it applies only when there's needed housing, and that the city, because its population is below 2,500 people, it doesn't apply to this application. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. The applicant has requested the opportunity to submit additional amendment or conditions back in some of their submittals. And so, just want to bring that to you and say, this is what we think the answer is. It's relatively new, and, I'm not going to give you 100%, but I think that's the right answer. And so if you were willing to give that opportunity, you certainly can, but I don't believe that you have to.
I don't think we should consider accepting amendments
I agree with
or
you.
conditions of approval based on that exemption from ORS 197.303 regarding the size of the city.
I agree with you.
I do also.
And I as well.
me too.
Okay.
Okay. And with that, I think Steve and I have our marching orders. We will try to get this out to you as quickly as we can so that you have an opportunity to review those findings before your meeting. And if we get something wrong, if you have improvements, suggestions, deletions, whatever, we can talk about it at the next meeting. And if needed, we hope not. The actual 120-day deadline is August 23rd, if I remember right. So there is a possibility it could go on if we really make a fumble of it. But hopefully we'll be in good shape next on the 15th.
Okay.
So August 15th.
Correct, 6 p.m. on August 15th.
Okay.
Anything else? Okay, meeting's adjourned. Thank you, everyone.